So my name's Maria Klawe. I majored in mathematics at the University of Alberta in Edmonton, Alberta, and that's where we moved there when I was 12. And in Canada, you basically go to your local universities, at least for undergraduate things. And I did drop out of college in the middle of my junior year to travel around the world, and decided that I really love math, and so came back 21 months later, and essentially went directly into taking graduate classes, even though I hadn't finished my undergraduate degree, and started my PhD program a year later, and finished my PhD in math in 1977. And I worked in pure math. I never took any computer science, and I ended up getting a tenure track job as a faculty member, which was pretty hard to do at that time. There was maybe 85 jobs, of which only, probably a dozen were tenure track. This is in all of North America, were tenure track jobs, and about 1,000 people applying for them, so I was really lucky.
Wow.
And so I took this job at Oakland University in, it's north of Detroit, called Oakland County, about 25 miles north, and I hated it. Partly because the students weren't very strong, partly because there was no social life and I was single, all kinds of things like that. And so one of the ways I coped with this was I went to a lot of conferences, and at one of those conferences, partly because I would see friends at conferences, so I went to a conference every month over an 8-month period, and at one of them I found out that people who I knew as pure mathematicians, actually some of them were in computer science departments, and the job market in computer science was insane in terms of insanely hot rather than insanely cold like math. And so I decided to do a second PhD in computer science, and so after 1 year at Oakland University, I took a year's leave and went to the University of Toronto, which at the time and still today is one of the top 10 departments in North America of computer science. And I went directly into graduate courses. I took 5 graduate courses each semester. And by the time I was in, and with no prerequisites or anything, so I worked harder than I've ever worked in my life. And, but I did well. And by the time I was in the start of my second semester, I was getting asked to interview for computer science faculty positions, and I went on one interview, and when I came back, the chair at Toronto said, why haven't you applied for a position here? And I said, well, because you're one of the top departments. And he said, there better be an application on my desk by Monday morning at 9 a.m. So I applied and hired me. So I never finished the second PhD. I started working as an assistant tenure track position of computer science. In the beginning of, my first year there, I was running a seminar series, and the second speaker in the seminar series, I ended up getting engaged to 6 weeks later.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
Yeah. So he was working at IBM Research in New York, and Toronto was thrilled because they'd been hoping to recruit him as a faculty member for ages. And then Toronto made him an offer, IBM made me an offer. We also were recruited by MIT, but I ended up deciding to go to IBM for a variety of reasons, IBM Research, and we went to IBM Research in San Jose.
San Jose, you said?
Yeah, so I was there for 8 years, and one of the things that turned out to be very helpful for my career was after I'd been there for 4 years, I got made a manager of a brand new group. Actually, this was all my idea. I lobbied for it for a full year before they agreed to do it, but they did it. And then a year after having been made manager of that group, I was made a second-level manager of 5 different research groups. And as part of that, I got a lot of professional development training, and being a manager and then a second-level manager. And that's one thing you don't often get in universities when you move into positions. So when we left IBM Research, I went to be the head of the computer science department at the University of British Columbia, and part of that was our kids at that point were 3 and 6. UBC, they had a computer science department, but they wanted to double it in size and make it much stronger. My parents lived in British Columbia, so it was really nice to go there with young children. I wanted my kids to go to French immersion, which was possible in Vancouver, so I was moved. We stayed there for almost 15 years, and I was head of the department. Then I was the senior vice president because I was checking out whether I wanted to be president of a university, and there were a couple of things I wanted to fix at UBC that I got fixed. Then I was dean of science because I really wanted to be back on the academic side of leadership. After that amount of time, I gradually became aware we were doing lots of things around women in STEM at UBC in terms of more women to areas where they're underrepresented, hiring more female faculty. But what I realized was that from UBC, I could not really influence culture change in the U.S. And if you want to change the culture of STEM, you really have to do it in the U.S. because that's sort of it's still, I mean, China is becoming much more powerful in STEM in general, but still most graduate students from other countries still come to the U.S. to do their PhD. And so if you want to change culture, you really should do it from here. And that's why I moved to Princeton as Dean of Engineering in January 2003, was I just realized that if I was really going to sort of take the kind of thing I was trying to do to the next level, I needed to move back to the U.S. And so I was Dean of Engineering at Princeton for 3.5 years. I knew my next job was going to be as president somewhere. I was contacted about Harvey Mudd. I had no intention of moving at that point, but I also really didn't particularly like living in New Jersey, having lived most of my adult life on the West Coast. And I wanted to move back to the West Coast, and Harvey Mudd obviously is on the West Coast. And so I decided that I would at least, that I wasn't going to be a serious candidate, but I would at least sort of take a look at it. And I kept on trying to get out of being a candidate, and they kept on sort of saying, oh, we know you're not serious, we know you're not interested in the job. And of course, I stayed in it. They eventually made me the offer, and eventually I accepted it. So now I've been at Harvey Mudd, this is my 12th year, and it's been an amazing experience. I think, so this is a place that cares enormously about teaching undergraduates. It's a place that is really committed to diversity and inclusion, both in terms of women, but also students of color. It's a place that does a lot of innovation in curriculum and pedagogy. And so, you know, I think one of the things that's been fantastic about being here is being able to really understand what it would take to attract more women and students of color into areas like computer science and engineering and physics and so on, where they're really underrepresented. So that's the story. Yeah, it was very obvious. So, you know, so I grew up being completely uninterested in girlish things, like dolls or painting dresses or, you know, whatever. And only being interested in boy-type things. And so, you know, it was, I think, pretty clear by the time I was in middle school and then in high school that I was really good at math. And this was at a time when everyone said that girls weren't good at math. And even though I was an undergraduate, and, you know, it wasn't that, so there were no female faculty members in the math department while I was there, out of, you know, whatever, 45 or 50 faculty members. And there were typically like 2 girls in my math class. If there were 20 people in it, there would be 2 girls, or 1. And one of the things that the professor said to me quite often was, I don't see why you want to be a mathematician. There are no good female mathematicians, and you're good at so many different things. And, you know, it'd be so much easier for you to be successful in another field. Why would you pick this?